So I think a week from today, well, 2 weeks from today, we'll be on spring break. So 1 week from today, we're going to do the in-class portion. And then I left it on the dashboard of my truck. And I'm going to scan it in. I actually did a pretty good job with it. I used a straight edge and I drew these things. I think I could actually tell what I drew. So I'm going to scan it in and put it on there. That's going to be the take-home portion. Plus, I did a portion of the in-class part too. So what I did, it's still sitting on the dashboard. And so what I'm going to do is split them. One of them you can take in class, and the other one you can take home. So since I'm delayed, I should have got that one to you earlier. I'm going to make it due like a couple weeks after spring break. So it doesn't ruin your spring break. You can forget about it, go do what you're going to do, come back and start in on it Sunday night or something, or Monday or whatever. So I think I should go in today and I'm just going to talk about what is on the in-class portion. And the reason I should do that, there's no reason to talk about the other one until I'm going to just put it out there Friday and I can talk about it. But the in-class portion is the part that you probably should be mostly concerned with right now. If you look at the book, all the way up into, and even past this, I mean, if you get into even chapter 5, I mean, well, now chapter 5 it's kind of confined to some specialized thing, which we haven't talked about yet. But all the way up into chapter 4, everything is all based upon some basic facts that cover all of chapter 2, 3, and 4. I mean, there's things that are united between all of them. And so what I'm going to focus on the in-class portion is subgroups of that. Let me give you some examples. I did the add page. Now, let me make sure I get, well, I know I can draw a straight edge, but maybe the best thing for me to do is find examples in the book because, so let's just go back to the beginning. Okay, so it's got scalars and vectors, vector addition, all of this. This is one point that I think you probably should figure out how to do, and some of the dot products. But let's take a look at this. And to do this one, I think I might as well just find. Oh, here you go. So a problem like this would be a case in point that you really should know how to do. What I mean by that is, I don't have snippet up there, so here. Snipping tool. So I'll add to this problem to give you an idea of the overall. So if I went in, oh gosh. Okay, why is it doing this here? I don't know. I froze it somehow. Okay. It should not respond this way to this thing. Okay. I have no idea what it was doing there. But here, let me get all this mess off here. So if you look at this particular problem, what facts could be asked about it? And first, of course, the guy is pulling on it. So you'd want to be able to find the vector, which I've listed them as the vector pointing to B originating from R. I would say you need to know how to find that. Then you need to figure out how to find that unit vector, which I've been calling it this. And let's see what he calls it. He may just call it, he just calls it U. So, but he calls the other one R, so he didn't put any subscripts on it. But to me, I look at that and I see that, this is a vector. So this is kind of prepping you for dynamics anyway. So to me, I would just call that a vector which points to B originating from A. So that's all. That's the only difference. I just have a different. I have the concept that comes from statics. I mean, from dynamics, which I don't know why he doesn't use that, but it's okay. It's okay. So then, being able to calculate the U, you should be able to do that. Then the next thing, okay, so your course should be able to, if you were given two of these, now in this case, there's only one. Let's say you were given another rope over here. You should be able to do the dot of that plus some other vector. I guess I'll just call it A for the minute. So if someone gave you A equals to, I don't know, here, 2I minus 3J, making stuff up, minus 4K. Say somebody gave you this and wanted you to dot it with the other vector. You should be able to know how to do that. Or for that matter, somebody could just give you two vectors, or I'll just say or. Given A, you should be able to do that. If you're given two vectors and you're dotting them, do you get a vector or a scalar? Scalar. So it's just a number out of here. So you should be able to do that. The other oddball thing, and this might take some thought, it seems to me that this part takes a little thought for a lot of people, and that is the cosine angles here. And let me give you, on this particular problem, since I have it all drawn here, let me go and do this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this back off. So if you went in and redrew the coordinate systems up here, oh, sorry, that's a Y. Redraw it again. So here's a Y. Here's down the x-axis. Now what they've done is, I don't know if I'm a good artist. Actually, that is an alpha. It may be leaning too far. It may be misinterpreted. So here, alpha, and then a vector. So here you got this vector runs out here. So then you got the angle between that and the y-axis, beta. And then let's see if I can do a decent job. Say that that's not bad. That's okay. Now, if you look in the book, okay, I don't think, oh, I'm sorry, he does do that here. Okay, I didn't know that he did that there. So you need to be able to calculate those as well. Now, this is a better problem than I thought. So let's take a look at what he did. I mean, all he did was he first found the vector that ran out here to B, and I don't know how long it took him to do that. Now, don't expect me to be as good as he is about getting these numbers. I mean, look, he got 12 over 28, 8 over. He got these numbers so that, and he got this too. I mean, look at this down here. I'm not this good. So, plus he's written this book for going on 40 years. So he's got 40 years. I'm doing it. I mean, I've done this course maybe 6, 8 times. Maybe more like 4. So I could sit there and work and try to figure out how do I get this thing to do this and produce these numbers on the bottom. And I might look at it for a minute, but I've already put the numbers on the page. So for me to go back, and I made them to scale. So the drawing you got, I mean, I sat there and I drew things and I made it to scale. I can bet you money, this is not going to, I'm not going to have these nice numbers. It's not going to work. So it might be, 0.7123285, 0.12. It might be all sorts of weird numbers. So you're going to have to use digits. So I'm sorry about that. And if you want to get that feeling, just go back and change this 12 to a 13 and work it out. You'll change any one of these numbers and you'll find out you're not going to get this nice look to it. So he takes the radius, not the radius, the R, the length of the rope going there. So he has the length of that rope. That rope is 28 foot long. And then he comes in and says, well, I want to take the vector that points to this guy from that end of that rope. I want to divide it by the 28 length. And then you have what's the unit vector, which I'm calling U A to B or something like that. So I'll use that term, I guess, the A to B thing. Then what he does is he says, hey, the guy is pulling with 70 pounds. So if I multiply 70 back times that U, I get this. And lo and behold, these things turn out to be 30 minus 20 is minus 60. You're not going to get this. If you do, I would really be surprised because I made no attempt at all to make this. And now that I see this, it makes me a little bit concerned. So you might get, 28.2751 and 30 point, you're not going to get even numbers. But the sequence that you're going through, this is kind of what I expect for you to know how to do. Why this as compared to everything else? Because this same concept goes through the entire statics course. So this is accumulation of not really chapter 1, but chapter 2, 3, and 4. They make you do this in all those. So being able to do this, then coming back and finding, okay, so now you got to find your alpha, your beta, and your gamma. So this is the angles from that vector to the coordinate axis. So what he does is he puts the coordinate right there at A. And then all you do is you take this, and this, and if you scroll down, you'll find out that these are the angles. Now, again, look at what I almost said something in error, but he does get digits here. So inverse cosine of 28, 12 over 28. Get the numbers. So I expect you to be able to find the alpha, beta, and gamma as well. On the test, not on the test, but, of course it comes in, it's stapled, it comes together, you hand it out. There'll be another page. The other page is going to be the back of each chapter. If you notice, I don't know if you paid attention to this, but at the end of, okay, I'm trying to get to the end of the chapter by looking at these little, so these pages that are called chapter reviews, I'm going to take those things and I'm going to copy them or print them and then staple them. And, you'll get your test and you also get a copy of that. So you can do with that what you want. You can use it, but you can throw it away. Or, of course, you don't want to throw away before you use it. So all the equations are in all of those will be there for every chapter. So there'll be one on chapter. I'm not going to do chapter 1, but this is on chapter 2, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, this is on chapter 2. So all of those pages are going to be there. So if you think about it, that's what this is, position, dot, product. If you know how to do this, and you know how to find the alpha, beta, and gamma, which was in that problem, and you know how to break them into 2 coordinates. If you know how to break them into 3 coordinates, you should know how to break them into 2. Here's a case in point. If you want to just break it into 2, let's say here's Y, here's X, somebody pulling out here, and say this coordinate is at, I don't know. Now this I can do 5, 4 and 3. So if you do that, that I know will break in. So if this is at point 4 and 3, then what's the length of that vector, you think? Yeah, it's 5. So if someone were to ask you what's that R is just 4I plus 3J. EU, that looked funny. 4/5 I plus 3/5 J. Now, if you want to be silly, and you can be silly if you want to, okay, it's not going down. Okay, well, I'll do it over here. So if you look at it, you say, okay, here, do it this way, plus 0K. Now, if someone were to ask you what the, okay, and this drawing would look like this, Z. What do you think this would be? This, of course, this is gamma. This one's alpha. This one's beta. What's gamma? Yeah, this is 90 degrees. So I could do something like that to you. Now given the fact this was easier to come up with, then all you're doing is, let's see, alpha is the cosine inverse of whatever got stuck right here, which I have no idea what that is. My guess, it's got to be like 38 degrees, 37, maybe 40. Okay, 36.86. Okay, so there you go. And that makes sense because if you think about it, if you were drawing the triangle and it did go out here and it was 5, it was 4, and it was 3, then that's got to be less than 45 degrees because 45 degrees is, a 4/4, which comes up here. It's got to be less than 45. So what do you think? In this case alone, what do you think beta would be? Would it be 90 minus 36.86? Only in this case. The definition is cosine inverse of 3/5. So do those both equal the same thing? Roughly. It should. Oh, okay. So it's pretty much the same. So the reason, okay, now, if I tilted this vector in a little bit, would this hold? So this would still hold. Would this one still hold? It wouldn't. The reason being is because only the case when this vector is laying in that plane does this and this add up to 90. If it comes out of that plane, what do you think happens to alpha and beta? Do they go up a little bit? They should go up a little bit. So you think about it, you stand here. It sounds like a weird thing, but you stand here and I draw a vector that lays in the plane of the wall. The angle between here and the line that comes on the floor, as I start moving it out of the plane, it starts growing. I mean, I could make it grow to the point where I'm way over here, pointing over here, but I hadn't changed my elevator. I just twisted my body. This angle between that line and this starts growing. So if they are in the plane, then that's a good check. But that is only if they're in the plane. This always holds the gamma, which I didn't write that down. Cosine inverse is 0. So being able to do this, I mean, in 2D, it's easier to do than in 3D, but I guess that's possible, although maybe doing it this way, maybe not a waste of time, but actually making it more complicated than it should be. You think about it, the only thing left there is a dot product. And I don't know, I guess I might ask a question on that. So at least be able to know how to do that. All you're doing got, well, now he's shown it in two dimensions, but it actually occurs in three. So if you had two vectors, say, let's do a problem like that, so I can show you possibly, and I'll bounce back and forth. So you should be able to do something along these lines, although I didn't put it on the exam quite yet, but still you could. So you get A being 3i plus 4j. Wait a minute. And then I do this other one, B, because I know how to multiply these. So it's the reason I'm 4i plus 3j. And then somebody says, what's the angle? So I know that if I dot A with B, I get the magnitude of A, magnitude of B. This is actually a pretty good test problem. Cosine of the angle between them. What's the magnitude of A? What's the magnitude of B? Yeah. So if it's the same thing, you're back to 3, 4, 5, right? So it's 5, and that's 5, right? Cosine of theta. Now, if you dot these two, what is the answer? It's 4 times 3 plus 3 times 4. I think that's 12 times, isn't that 12? So that dot product is 12, or 24 divided by 25. Oops, 25 equals cosine theta. So if you want to find out the angle between that thing, 24 25ths is equal to, what is that angle, by the way? I don't have MATLAB up. And if I touch that way, sometimes it loads the wrong MATLAB. Okay. That makes, okay, well, I got that in the way. Okay, here we go. So the angle's around 16.2, you say? So any two vectors, I mean, it just so happens this was convenient. Why? Because the magnitude of this one's square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. Magnitude of this one's a square root of 4 squared plus 3 squared. You look at those, that's 5 and that's 5. So those were convenient problems because you look at it, and even if you, the first time you really needed your calculator was right here. So I like that one. You know, now where did that come from? If you stare at this book right here, and you look at what I did, then I just did this. Okay, here's the definition, A dot B. Well, this thing is this, AX, BX times each other, plus AY, BY times each other. There wasn't a Z in mine. I didn't have a Z. But I knew the length of this vector. In my case, mine was 5 and that one was 5. They were both 5. That being the case, I've got 5 and 5, and the dot product was 24. You just put them together, and you get you inverse cosine that. And so if you can do that, you know, because like I said, as time goes on, I'm going to do something in class, which are little bitty conceptual things like this. But then as you come in on Friday or whatever, well, I'm not going to give it to you. It'll be on a PDF on the blackboard. So you take it, print it out. Those are the ones that you use these things to do bigger problems. Does that make sense? So what I'm doing in class is just, I'm like, it's kind of like poking you a little bit. Just poke, poke, poke. And I'm not like, other people might put a nail on your head and just whack it with a sledgehammer. It reaches right down to your spinal column. No, I'm going to do that out of class. So I'm just going to give you a little pop and for in class. And you, if you got it, if you understand it, I mean, the test probably take you 30 minutes. And then you got something to take with you for your enjoyment over spring break. So, but you don't have to do it over spring break because, you know, it'll be a week or so after you get back. We'll make it due then. And instead of putting that on, submitting that, maybe you just work it like a normal person and turn it in like a piece of paper. And I can just, because I think I can make it. However, which one do you prefer? Would you prefer to turn it in through Blackboard or work it on a sheet of paper and turn it in? Which one do y'all, or do you care? That's no. You want to turn it in? Okay, we'll just do that. Because I think there's a way, I'm not sure, but I think there's a way I can grade it by hand and scan it and give it back to you through Blackboard. Don't quote me on that because I'm not sure about that. I think there's, yeah, I could do that. Actually, if I do that, I take them over to the scanner, and we have a scanner that turns around. I take a USB drive and it just loads them on there. Now, however, the last few times I didn't have my USB drive, and I found out from Carla, you can sit there and you can type a couple of things and you can scan all these papers, and all of a sudden, I have my phone connected to the tech email, and all of a sudden I'll get all the scans in my phone. So there's a way you can kind of do that. So I could do that. So, and not only that, if you use a color pencil, I had people do this before. You ever seen those red, white, and green pens that a couple of people would work them in color coding. They did this on a test. I thought, wow, that's a lot of commitment to have all these. They had colored pencils, So you can go buy these sets of colored pencils at Staples. You open them up. There's like 10 different colors. So these people were working their tests and color coded, and I thought, now I've got to make this a color scan. So I went over and scanned them all in color. And I looked at them on my screen. I'm like, oh, this is great. And that goes to show you how idiotic a human like me can be. I was pleased that it was in color. Isn't that stupid? Well, it goes along with the first time I took my first. Well, it's the first job I had where I did a presentation to everybody. And the guy told me, he said, wow, whatever you do, make everything in color. Now, we didn't have PowerPoint, we didn't have anything, but we had a color transparency thing. So I printed all these things out in these great colors, and everybody's like, ooh, put them on there. And said, oh, wow. And then finally, nobody said a thing, went through everything. And the guy who was in charge of the whole division, he said, are these correct? And I'm like, I didn't know how to respond. And I said, well, I think so. Everybody looked at each other and they're like, okay. They got up and left. And that was it. Now, that is opposed to what they did to the last guy. They chewed him alive. But he didn't have color skins. So, isn't that the silliest thing? Anyway, that has nothing to do with what's on the test. And I don't care if you color code or not. I don't care. I'm just saying that because it's so idiotic. Okay. That was chapter 1. This is chapter 2. So if I run down to chapter 3. Okay, so if you think about it, all of these are subsets of chapter 2. For example, yeah, I could give that problem on a test. But what you're doing, what are you doing there? Well, you're actually taking this thing and you're finding that force. You're finding that force. You're finding that force. And then you're adding them together. You're some of the forces in the X, some of the forces in the Y, some of the forces in the Z. Well, before you did any of that, you had to find the unit vector of all of those. So you had to find, well, in this one you don't need one, but this one you need the unit, this one you need. So you have to do that before you do any of these problems. So that's why if I just poke you to find a unit vector, dot a few things in class, I'm good. If I'm going to give you this, it's going to be in a take-home part of it. So I will look back and try to see if my drawings are a little bit better than what, I want them to be, so you can read them. I mean, these you can read. So give me another day or so to make sure I can make them nicely and readable. And if I can't make them that great, I may just copy a couple of them out of here and change the dimensions and stuff like that, because he does such a good job of this. So if I'm in chapter 3, you know, can you ask me that on Friday? Because I'll be done with it then. I don't know that I would know yet. I know that so far I have one picture with multitudes of questions on it. I don't know if you define that as one problem or how many. I forgot how many questions I asked on it. And so I'll probably come up with another picture. So uh, just ask me that on Friday. I'll give you a better sense, but it shouldn't be too many. Okay, now I've slipped into chapter 4. Okay, I was trying to stop there on chapter 3 to look at the. Okay. All right. Don't tell me they don't have anything. Okay, here's chapter 3. I'll tell you what, they may not have any. Okay, there's that one. There may not. Okay. Well, okay, take that back. There's one page. Okay, so on this, I mean, what can I ask you in an in class on that? I mean, I guess I could do something simple. If I do anything simple on the test in this chapter 3, let me show you, kind of run back what I would do. And let me do it this way. Okay. If I did anything on 3, it's going to be more along the lines of something like this. I'm not going to do multitudes of rings, but I could set something up like this that would have a funny angle here, maybe besides 45, I mean here. And all he's doing is he's summing the forces in the X and summing the forces in the Y. If I did this in class, it will be in 2D because I don't want to do a 3D in class. You'll probably do a 3D already take home. So I don't want to grade it per se. So in that one, if you look at it, he just sets up a free body diagram. TC, tension in the cable C, tension in the cable A. He finds the components. In this case, 4/5 of TA running to the left, hence it's a minus. Then 45 degrees to the right. So there's only those two. If you think about it, you only have this force has to be offset by that force. And then in the Y diagram, you have essentially force going north here, which is in that case this TC 45. The force that's going north right here, which is that one. And then you have it offset by, the weight of the thing underneath it. So something like that is as deep as it's going to go in the in-class portion. So, I mean, I would say this problem right here would, if you knew how to do this one, let me roll down, see if the next one, or something like that. Well, okay, I will not do this. I will not make you find an angle. I would probably just tell you that angle, tell you this weight, and you find the tension here and find the tension there. I don't want to do anything oddball like that one. But the drawing is perfect. I mean, from this, you get a free body diagram. Perfect. I am not going to do any springs, not necessarily because it's not a good idea. It's just I don't want to see it. It adds a complexity, which is okay, but it's unneeded. If I found the tension AB to be 100, and then this is K, F is equal to KX or K delta. You got this being that, you got this being that, you divide them out. What did that prove? To me, that didn't prove anything. That just proved you know how to find given a force. So that doesn't do any good for me. To me, for statics, can you find the tension here? Can you find the tension here? If you were given the light weight. you know, and that's it. So to me, that's, I don't, I'm not trying to make it complex. And that's a perfect one. I like that one. I like that one because 3, 4, 5, and 30 degrees. That's good. Spring that. Uh, I like that one. That's pretty good. This one's confusing, but yet not confusing. And here's why. Okay, if that's 40 kilogram, 40 times 9.81 is a number that's maybe around 390. I don't know. So it's around, what is it, man? 392. So 392 newtons. So what that means is somebody's pulling here with 392 newtons. It says if the mass of the cylinder determine the mass of cylinder A. Well, then you got to do this. And come to think of it, I'm not sure I wanted the complexity of dealing with that. So me, I might erase this whole thing and say somebody's pulling 392. So, but I like the drawing. It's compact, convenient. It's fine. When we get into some of these, for in-class part, maybe not. For out-of-class, yeah. Okay, there's a decent one. Determine the maximum weight. Okay, well, yeah, I would say the weight of the pod is whatever. What's the tension in this cable? What's the tension in that? That's the extent of it. So, yeah, go ahead. So to me, it looks kind of weird. I know. Yeah, so if you had it like this, I would just say, 10-pound pot. I don't know. Okay, what's the tension in this line? What's the tension in that line? I can do sum of the forces in the X equal to 3/5 of tension. I'm just going to call it B. And in this one, I'm looking for, and that's a minus because it's going to the left, plus tension in C, but I'm looking for the part that's going this direction. So that's actually sine of 30. And then sum of the forces in the Y equals 2. And now go ahead and put my minus 10 pounds. And then both of these are going up. So it's 4/5 of tension B, and plus the tension is C cosine 30. And then you just solve these two for the tension B and C. So, I will put it so that, these are the questions. But it would be to your advantage and to mine as well to write these equations out. In case you did a calculation and you goofed it up, I can look right there and give you partial credit. Does that make sense? So try to make it so that it's nicely readable. You know what I'm saying? And that's the extent. I don't think I'm going to go any deeper than that. Because really so as a matter of fact, I guess at the most I would say 3 problems. One where there's a rope, somebody's yanking on it in some direction. You find the vector out to there. You make it a unit vector, multiply it times 70, 80, 90, 100 pounds. Take that, and that gives you the vector that goes out there. At first thought, I was thinking, I'll just make them dot that with something else, but that doesn't serve any purpose. But what does serve a purpose is if you had an A and a B, dot those two together and find the angle between the two vectors. And then something like this. And I'm good with that if you're fine. The next, okay, that's 3. The next thing, I think I might be interested, and I think I might be fine on it. Like, for example, here's a good example. You may want to find the moment, express the moment produced by this. I may postpone them doing the cross products to another in-class part, but you will have this on your take-home part. So in other words, guys pulling a tree, the tree can only accept so much of a moment or it's going to fall out of the ground. So did you produce that moment? So I mean, if the tractor is really close and he's pulling straight down, that's not enough moment to pull the tree over. But if he's out here pulling way out in this direction, if his tractor's way over here, I mean, that's a larger moment because he's set off, or he can pull the tree right over. So things like that. So that'll be in the take home. I just don't. I think if those three would be fine and do take home with chapter 4. So I don't have anything more, unless you want more. You don't? Do you want more? I mean, I can put more on there, but do you want it? All right, 4. Okay, so then 5. Okay, 5 is where we start in and we sort of, what's funny is you do 4, you get down here. Well, I guess you get down to here. You get down to here, and it's kind of a gray area where 4 and 5 kind of melt together. And it's kind of like, well, was this in 5 or was this in 4? And sometimes you have to think about it to find the problem. Sometimes you can't determine that they're much different. But the fun part, the really neat part, starts in 6 and 7, sorry. Because the cool thing about it is now with this, you're starting to look at more like a truss system. And you can go through and find out the stresses in the truss. Well, okay, take that back. What you're going to find here is the load in the truss, like how many pounds is. When you're in mechanics and materials, all you do is you divide that by the area. So if you're looking at a cross-sectional area, and the cable has 1 inch diameter or 1 inch area, and you got 30,000 pounds, that's 30,000 pounds per inch or 30,000 psi. That's what breaks things, is the pounds per square inch or pounds per square foot for that matter. And so that, as an engineer, that's what you're looking for. So the first step of that is finding out the loads in these trusses. So for example, here he found out that this funny looking little funny truss there, in its members, it has 500 newtons of tension trying to pull it apart there. It's compressing this one at 707 newtons, and its tension here is 500 newtons. So what you do is you're using some of the forces equal 0 in the X and Y here, and you're working around the different nodes. So we'll go through this, and I'll show you how to. And this one's very, very practical. This is very much what you would do in practice as an engineer. So there are times where you can identify, he will call them 0 force members that there's no particular reason for having on there. If you had a pin jointed truss, you spent the money to put this truss here from A to B and A to F. You load the thing and you find out, why did you spend the money for A to B and A to F when you didn't need it? They're just sitting there. Now, of course, you can go on and put a load right there. If you pull on it right there, yeah, then there's a load in this one. And unless well, maybe if you put a load right there, you'd be at load right there too. So there's members which are buried, you can find them often, that are buried inside of a truss that actually don't have any loads on them. And consequently, you paid money to put there. Maybe you did it for insurance or something in case there's some load that you're scared about. So you can see these are very much like trusses you would find. There's 2 different types of methods of finding the stresses in the members. What he calls nodal and sections. And what you're going to do in this is you're going to use all your sum of the forces equal mass times, sum of the forces equal 0 in X and Y. And then you're going to apply it to something to get the loads inside the members. So before you were doing it, and you were, well, okay, maybe I should take that back. So you were finding things that were of value. Now it's more like, I think it's more closer to the engineering practice. So that's why I like this one. And it'll twist your mind, especially when you get into 3D ones. Oh man, it makes your brain hurt sometimes. So especially look at that. And then you get in here, oh man, look at that thing. Oh geez, Um, so then what happens is frames and machines, you could treat them the same way. So so we'll get into here, and then 7. So 6, you definitely carry with you in mechanics and materials. 7, you definitely carry with you. You really need to know 6 and 7 to do as a baseline to help you in mechanics and materials. If you get this in 6 and 7, now friction and centroids, you need to know those as well, but I'm going to bounce over those and tell you what you need to know to get you through mechanics and materials. Now, when you get in there, he may add more problems on that. So, but you need the fundamentals. You find out friction's not that hard, but it could be made very hard. And usually they make it harder in there. So that's it. So the test. So I guess if you think about it, I guess I could answer that question maybe a little better now. Maybe 3 individual drawings and maybe a couple questions about each of the drawings, but I don't know how many. I'll have to get back with you on the number of questions on those. So one drawing I'm very pleased with. It turned out great. Hopefully the copier will be kind to me. I hope. It's been doing fine for years, so I don't anticipate it being wrong, the copier messing up now.